Welcome to this weekend drive edition of Daily Drive for the fourth week in May 2024. I'm Jamie Butters, executive editor of Automotive News in Detroit.
And I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today we're breaking down some of the biggest stories in the auto industry from the past week and looking forward to what's in store in the days ahead. Our own Lindsay Chappell joins us to talk about a series of automaker announcements this past week that signal more changes in EV strategies.
It's not that the legacy automakers failed to respond. They are responding. But other people are responding much more aggressively. And by other people, I mean the auto industry of China.
That's coming up in a few minutes. But first, Jamie, how you doing?
Good, Kel. How about you?
Doing all right. Let's get into some news. So, this week, we got more details on the new U.S. tariffs on Chinese-made products. Big increases on Chinese imports like EV batteries, computer chips, and medical products. On the flip side, China has signaled it's ready to unleash tariffs as high as 25% on imported cars with large engines. Now, Jamie, am I missing something? Where are these Chinese cars that are being imported?
Yeah, we don't have any Chinese competitors here, do we? I mean, certainly not Chinese brands, not Chinese companies per se. There are a few cars made in China, Polestars, there's a Volvo, a Buick, and a Lincoln. And Polestar and Volvo are owned by a Chinese company, it's a Chinese investor, but they're still based in Sweden. So, that's less of a thing. It's sort of like, yeah, Biden is putting taxes on vehicles that don't exist in a sense, but don't exist in our market, right? She's doing the same thing. It's they're both politicians leading big economies. They want to look tough, and they don't want to actually hurt their economy. So China is threatening taxes on big engine imports. That's going to be inconvenient for GM and Ford that sometimes like to sell their big SUVs into China and make a margin on them. There's some European sedans, big luxury vehicles that can get sold into China, but it's small volumes. It's not, no one's going to be changing their profit outlook based on tariff on imports into China. China is an overcapacitized market where it's very difficult to make money anyway.
Sounds like a whole lot of nothing about everything.
Well, that's the political game sometimes.
Right. And Jamie, this week I got to check out the Advanced Clean Transportation Expo, commonly known as the ACT Expo here in Las Vegas, and there was a ton of clean energy big rigs. Tesla showed up with its electric semi, Honda debuted a Class 8 hydrogen fuel cell truck concept, just to name a few. But with all the new clean energy advancements, what advancement will make the most sense in the long term? Some folks think battery electric. Others think when hydrogen finally gets there, it will make more sense for heavier loads. What are your thoughts?
I wish I was a physicist or an engineer of some sort to give you a really good answer. I do think the hydrogen makes a lot of sense in the medium to longer term. Obviously, we've seen really good performance out of the Tesla Semi. I don't want to discount that as a possibility, and especially as advancements are made in batteries, both for density, but especially fast charging. There could be a role there, but the hydrogen makes a lot of sense given the size of the vehicles, the weight of the loads, and especially now that we're starting to get infrastructure built out throughout the country, the hydrogen hub program, very much geared around long haul trucking, right? To get you from and industrial work within an area. But if you've got these hubs throughout the country, big trucks with a lot of range can get from hub to hub, from region to region, and really be able to do a lot of zero emission hauling of goods, which is a really big part of the economy.
And do you think, Jamie, with all of the hydrogen infrastructure that's being built, it's kind of cut down that timeline of what folks' expectations were with hydrogen? Because I remember at a time we were talking maybe earlier this year or late last year where there was folks that were like, well, hydrogen might be 20 years out. And then you hear some folks say, well, hydrogen might be 10 years out. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest barriers to hydrogen adoption or adoption of hydrogen fuel cells or hydrogen combustion is the distribution. And it's challenging at all levels. Production is hard, distribution, storage, they're all very challenging. And then, turning it back into electricity to run the vehicle, none of that is easy and none of it's cheap. But there is a lot of work being done on the vehicle side. And now the U.S. government is investing a lot of money in these hydrogen hubs that really give a foundation and kind of put some bones on a hydrogen infrastructure for the United States in a way that, if you think of it as the chicken and the egg, I mean, now we're getting eggs, right? And so the chickens can go from around the country where the eggs are. So I don't know, maybe I've ruined the metaphor, but I think you get what I'm saying.
Gotcha. Toyota executives say they'll stay in the business of making sedans. While competitors are exiting the segment, Toyota still plans to pump out those Camrys. Jamie, do you think it would hurt Toyota if they ever left the sedan segment?
Oh, it would be an absolute identity crisis if Toyota stopped making sedans. They've had so much success with the Camry, the Corolla. I think these days the Prius is really considered a sedan as well. These are some of their very top names, huge volume vehicles. And what they really serve is the important role of offering a more affordable vehicle to get people into the brand. Then they have a good experience with it. Maybe the vehicle's super reliable. And so then they go back to the store and say, give me another one, or give me a bigger one. Give me something that's more of a crossover or even a pickup.
Coming up, we're starting to see more automakers announce changes in their approaches to building and selling electric vehicles as demand slows. Our own Lindsay Chappell joins the show to talk about it and what he thinks might be the saving grace for legacy automakers. That's next on Weekend Drive.
Welcome back to Weekend Drive. I'm Jamie Butters with Kellen Walker. Early this week, our own Urvash Karkaria broke the news that Nissan is pausing and reshaping its plans for building electric vehicles in the U.S. Not long after that, Ford asked its U.S. dealers to pause all investments in its EV retail program while it made changes. All of this comes as automakers try to figure out how to move forward with plug-in cars and trucks as demand cools. Senior editor Lindsay Chappell wrote about all of it in this week's Automotive News Intersection column, which comes out on Sunday. He joins me now from his home office near Nashville to talk about it. Lindsay Chappell, welcome back to Weekend Drive.
Hey, Jamie, it's good to be here.
So we've seen a lot of news on the EV front this past week or so, and most of it seems to say whoa. We started the week with a real doozy about Nissan. I mean, just a few weeks after unveiling its 3-year plan to invest in less costly EVs, the company kind of slammed on the brakes, told its suppliers to stop investing in planned vehicles while it reworks its plan to, quote, to enhance product competitiveness. That has to mean lower costs, right?
Yes, it can only mean lower cost, and that is the great devil in the details of this moment. Everybody's proven that they can make electric vehicles, but they often have price tags of $45,000, $55,000, and we are witnessing what happens when it's time for the mass market to embrace $55,000 cars. That ain't happening.
I mean, 55,000 is almost cheap by a lot of EV standards.
Yeah.
We see these pickups that are $100,000 and, a lot of luxury vehicles. But you're right. Even what look like mainstream cars, regular compact crossovers, are 50, 60,000.
Yeah. And, in the early days of EVs, stuff like that didn't necessarily immediately matter. And suddenly it kind of does matter. And I think, automakers are thinking, okay, how do we fix this problem? And I think they have a solution.
Well, before we get to the solution, let's see some of the warning signs. Let's rattle off some of those we saw, because what's happened right now that supply has surpassed demand, unlike 10 years ago or 5 years ago. We're seeing a lot of inventory pile up. Incentives are racking up. Ford just waved off its dealers from electrification infrastructure investments this past week. VW decided to delay bringing the ID.7 to the U.S. Lindsay, what do you think is behind all of these brake tapping moves?
Well, there's so many things going on. We were just talking about price, and you can't get away from that. A working family is not going to buy a $45,000 vehicle, no matter how cool it is. That was always the case. That was the case with sports cars. It's just, there's price determines your market. But there are other things going on too, and one of them, is this thing comes up every 4 years in November, a vote for who will be president of the United States for the next 4 years, and there is suddenly some thinking probably that, hey, if that guy wins, he might dismantle, this concept the country is chasing on dramatically reducing emissions and making America a greener place. That might go out the window. So maybe we just slow walk some of these projects. And that's one possibility. I mean, you can't discount that.
There's that one. And it's a global industry. The EU has an election too, where the balance of power is up, and that's in June. So we heard Carlos Tavares earlier in the year, like, we'll see what the people vote for in the U.S. and Europe, and what kind of regime we're going to be under.
Yeah. I think the other possibility is that manufacturers were barreling ahead to do their best with EVs when suddenly they got a memo from American consumers saying, I think we'd rather own a hybrid. And, you only have so much money. The wealthiest car companies in the world only have so much money and so many engineers and so many project managers. And you can't be in two places at once. And maybe they're shifting resources. We know they're shifting resources. There's no maybe about that. To scramble to go deeper into hybrids. And they kind of shrug their shoulders when we talk to them about it. And they say, well, we were thinking of hybrids all along. And this isn't any turn of the ship here. Yes, it is. They haven't been tooling their factories to build hybrids. They've been tooling their factories to build EVs. And now they're going, oh my God, there's gold on the streets of America if we could just build more hybrids. And that's a big ask. That's not just a matter, back in the 90s when everybody discovered that consumers wanted SUVs. Well, you move this line and you move that line and you brought in this chassis and that chassis. Hybrids have a different issue than EVs. They take a whole different battery. And, I think we'll be hearing about this in the months ahead. That you need hybrid car batteries, and I'm not sure where they're going to get them if everybody starts building hundreds of thousands of additional hybrids in this market.
Yeah, it's so curious, hybrids, especially plug-in hybrids, can be a really good bridge for people, especially maybe in the Midwest where charging isn't as available, that you could drive, emission-free most of the regular commuting and normal life, but still have the range that you want, if you're going out of state for the weekend. And but in the EV bubble, the automakers were like, nope, we're done. We're moving ahead. GM was like, we're going all EV. We don't want any hybrids. And they're like, we need plug-in hybrids. We're not sure where we're going to use them. If it's trucks, if it's, compact crossovers, the most popular segments, which type is the best place for it. But, it's, as we know, this industry does not make fast starts and stops, especially, on the manufacturing floor. But there's been a lot of efforts going on to reduce costs, to bring the cost of manufacturing down. And I feel like so much of this chaos in the market has to do with Tesla still the dominant player in EVs, and the fact that they cut their prices so dramatically last year on their two high volume products, the Model Y and the Model 3, and it really exposed, where demand is in the current supply, and put a lot of pressure on the other brands, under pressure themselves, really. But it just seems like everybody's aiming for Tesla as they try to make their plants, their EV manufacturing, more efficient.
Yeah, and it's not merely because Tesla's just super good. I mean, General Motors is super good as manufacturing. Ford Motor Company invented, uh, um, assembly lines. Those guys know how to make cars, and they know how to make really good ones. But Tesla is doing things differently, and that's what's tugging their collar. Tesla is throwing out the rule book in a lot of ways. Why do we need all these parts? Why do you have to have all these parts? Why can't we make this? Why can't we make these 17 parts as a single item? Why can't we make this internally? We love suppliers, but who says they have to make this? We got expertise in house, and they're issuing some very challenging changes. And we're going to report in the new week's issue that it's not that the legacy automakers, let's call them, were unaware of these things, and it's not that the legacy automakers failed to respond. They are responding, but other people are responding much more aggressively, and by other people I mean the auto industry of China. The Chinese automakers have totally connected with what Tesla's doing, and they have no compunctions about, well, let's throw this out and do it this way. They're marshaling ahead, and it's been interesting. We had a quote a few weeks ago from Hans Greimel, where some Toyota executives were at an auto show in China, and they came out going, "Oh my God, we have so far to go to catch up with what they're doing in China." And what they're doing in China is largely influenced by what Tesla's doing. So what it comes down to, I think, is every automaker in the world, there might be some people who aren't paying attention, but virtually every automaker in the world right now is going, we got to bring down our manufacturing costs. We can't keep making vehicles the same way. We need to rethink how we are building factories, how we are tooling factories, how we are setting up assembly lines, how we move parts through the factory, what kind of parts we use. And it's an awesome thing to live through, to witness this going on somewhat quietly in the auto industry, that a wave of change is happening right now. And that, I think, has to be an influence on, yes, we will be putting out 2 new EVs in 4 years. They must be thinking, wait a minute. We can't bring out those 2 vehicles and have them be way over the top in cost competitiveness. We need to rethink our cost structure. And to rethink our cost structure, we got to think, how are we doing things? I think we'll see a lot more change happening on the manufacturing side.
Well, and our readers at Automotive News can learn a lot of the ways that manufacturing is changing in a special section we have in the coming week's issue. Appreciate you pulling all those stories together.
Oh man, our reporters did some great work getting to that issue of looking into the fishbowl and seeing how people are thinking now. So I invite our readers to check them out.
Absolutely. Lindsay Chappell, senior editor at Automotive News, based in Nashville. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Always have fun talking to you. See ya.
That's all for this weekend drive edition of Daily Drive. I'm Jamie Butters.
And I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News executive producer Jake Neer for his help on today's podcast. You can get the latest news on electrification, trade tensions with China, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com.
We're off on Monday for the Memorial Day holiday here in the U.S. Come back on Tuesday for a conversation with General Motors North America Chief Marisa West. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. If you enjoy the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.